Hey guys, just another quickie here. I've played quite a few Blitz games today. It's like last night I couldn't lose. I was just playing really calmly, but with a deep sense of evil running through my veins. And then today I won a few, and then I lost a bunch in a row and whatever. But I tend to share the games with you that I win because, quite honestly, it's more fun going through a game that I win, where I do stuff right, rather than going through the games where I get my arse kicked. I'm quite happy to share videos, if somebody throw me 50 quid and I'll share the games where I get my arse kicked, but it's painful. It's not as much fun. But anyway, here's a nice one. Here's a nice one. Okay, so just came off the review there. And E4, E5. And normal stuff, we have the Italian, okay? And I'm these days going for the Rousseau gambit with F5. We go for crazy Freddy Krueger is going for the throw, okay? And we have takes. Now here in the Rousseau, you push the pawn, all right? Now there are other things as well. If the bishop comes here and you have the Roy Lopez, you can still push the pawn. However, I'm going to pull up, let's go away from that. We'll go to the Explorer. Okay, flip the board. Okay, so from this position, there are a few ways that we can go. And this is like a bit of Freddy Krueger training for you guys, okay? So, bishop out here, the Italian, we play F5, the Rousseau gambit, okay? They take, you push, okay? This has been played once on the Masters. In fact, I'm going to change it to my games as black, eh? Why not? Okay, and with E4, I've played E4 34 times. Oh, and white tends to win. That's not much fun, is it? My games with black. Okay, we play E4. Okay. Why is it saying white wins when he castles anyway? So yeah, so you can do that. You hit the knight, and this is very much like the Vienna gambit accepted. Okay, just in mirror. The difference is that because white's had an extra move, he's got his bishop out here. But this is not a bad thing in the Rousseau because you get to play d5 later on with tempo and kick the bishop back. Okay, and maybe protect this. So anyway, so that's in the Italian. Okay, but what if they play the Spanish? Okay, then again you can play this, and this is called the Danish gambit, right? And then again, if they take, you play E4, and I've won 2/3 of the time in this instance, okay? So obviously I'm just training all these openings. And if they play Queen E2, just like in the Vienna gambit, you can block with your queen, right? You might take, you recapture with D, and we're all fine, okay? The knight still has to retreat because he can't go there because of your queen. Could go here. In fact, he generally does. And then you can just develop, okay? Oh, and we can grab this pawn at some point, okay? So that's in the Spanish. Now, has to be worth noting, if your opponent here does not play, in fact, we'll go back here. What about if they play the 3 knights, then you have the winnower defense. Now, if they capture here, e takes f5, right? You can't push them because there's a knight there. Right, so you have to remember these things. Okay, and another version of this is bishop out to here. Okay, which is the bishop's opening, and again you can play f5. This is the Calabrese counter gambit, and here if they take, right? Obviously, well, there's no knight there to push, but important thing to remember is don't play d5. Okay, in fact, I've played d5 a few times, and I've played knight f6. Is this correct? It says I've lost every time I've played knight f6, but I'm sure knight f6 is the move, preventing the queen from coming down here. But hey ho. So anyway, back to the game. Right, so, we have, we're building a repertoire around a system that have similar themes, but you can't just always just automatically play this. I've just had a really good lesson with a guy in Australia, and one of the key things to take away is never play automatically, right? If you're like, particularly if you're like a London player or you play some kind of system, don't just bash out the moves, right? Always play the board that's in front of you. Anyway, so Rousseau Gambit accepted. Okay, so here we can push e4 because we can. And here he blocks with the queen. Now what do? We unpin the pawn with our queen. So the queen here was pinning this pawn against the king, and now the knight is stuck. And he can't come here because we just take it and hit the queen and hit c2 as well. Right, so here the knight goes to g5. What? So I grab the knight. Now I know this comes with a check idea. So queen takes with check. I drop back with my queen because I'm thinking, right, I'm up now a knight for 2 pawns. My opponent still has all his pawns on the board, but this one's a little bit displaced. So if he wants to trade queens now, I can recapture with a knight, I recapture with my dark squared bishop. I could even recapture with that one, but I wouldn't. Okay. Obviously, he's not going to want to do that. So what he wants to do is he wants me to take, and then he gets to undouble his pawns, and he gets this nice pawn center. So clearly, I don't want to do that either. So I play knight f6 and hit his queen, and now he blinks. Right, now he takes, and I'm not even a pawn down now. I'm a piece up for 2 pawns still. I've got 3 pieces out on the board. I'd like to castle there, but I can't because of this bish. However, I do have the option of playing d5, right? And this is what I like about this kind of family of openings. We have the option to, we have kind of greater flexibility and mobility, which creates attacking options on the board. So now d5. It's defended by my knight. Off you go, Mr. Clergyman. Bishop now returns to b3, where quite honestly it doesn't have huge prospects. I mean, it might come here at some point, right? So now I grab the pawn back. Now I'm, again, +2. Bishop is defending c2, I guess. Now he shields c2 again, and obviously I long castle. This is very much part of the plan in a lot of these moves. Notice that I've got a check here, and so on. Bishop comes down hitting my knight. I am unconcerned, right? I move my bishop with check. Might stick my bishop back here on b6 at some point. King moves, and now what do? Right, my knight is pinned against a rook. So let's put the question to the bishop. Does the bishop want to trade itself for my knight? Now, if this was you playing with the white pieces, what would you do? Because I don't think bishop takes knight is a very good idea. And the reason is, there's a couple of things. One is, there's no locked off pawns. So there are actually plenty of open lines on the board, right? And things are going to keep moving. Yes, we might have pawns locking off at some point in time, but I would keep this bishop on the board. I'd just probably retreat it. Another thing is that 1, 2, 3, 4, all white's pawns around the center of the board are on light colored squares, and that means that this bishop has the freedom of the city. Okay, it can move all around these pawns without disturbance or impedance. Now, after this, takes, that's not great, and one of the other reasons is he's just removed my g-pawn, giving me a semi-open g-file. And let's see if that turns out to be material. So we have knight d2. I bring up my knight now, hitting his bishop, but just generally trying to create a nuisance of itself. It might pop in there at some point, you never know. But mainly it's just making progress towards this guy. We want to come in, bring our knight towards the king. It wasn't really needed here in a defensive role. There's no queen on the board. We haven't got any immediate checkmate threats. The rooks are relatively passive. These pieces are relatively passive. You know, engage the knight. We have bishop here, and this is very easily refuted with c6. So now I'm just putting my pawns on light squares because he's got rid of his dark squared bishop. So the more pawns on light squares we have, he's only got a light squared bishop left, but I have a darkie. And that's absolutely fine. And now this bishop is just looking completely stupid. It's got this square, and that's it. Right, so in he comes, trying to bodge my knight, and my knight comes back here. First I have to calculate that I've got escapes, and I do. And he comes after the bishop now. No worries. Slide the bishop back. Let's look at this pawn. Happy days. Even got ideas now, starting to think about, you know, knight here, fork, stuff like that. Well, let's see how it works. Now he tries some counterplay on the queen side with pawns. I play h6 to h5. And because I'm starting to hatch a bit of a plan here, right? I actually want this pawn out of the way. So, pushes again, I push again. I'm unconcerned about this queenside storm. It's not got enough behind it. He's not engaged his rook yet. Okay, he takes. I just push my pawn, right? This is a really, really important kind of tactical pattern to know. Sometimes it's worse for you to recapture. When there is a pawn coming up in your king's face, sometimes you want to go nose to nose with that pawn and say, you stay right where you are, okay? You're actually helping me right now because you're a human shield against your own pieces because they can never capture that pawn. And what I do not want to do here, I mean, if I take here, bishop recaptures and suddenly his bishops, you know, come back to life. And it opens up the b file. And he's got rooks ready to jump in. I just don't want any of that nonsense, all right? So b6, okay? If he pushes this, I'll just move the rook. And the pawn is a human shield. If he doesn't push, I might put my king there. And the pawn's going nowhere, right? Meanwhile, on the king side of the board, okay, I've got my own ideas. Now he pushes a pawn, and I go, nah, not even interested in that. I'm going to hit this knight. My real purpose here is something else, okay? Can you figure out why my bishop has gone here and what my checkmating plan is? Because it's already starting to hatch. It's pecking at the shell and it's poking its ugly little beak out through the hole in the shell, okay? My plan at this point involves a sacrifice of this guy, right? We spotted this at one point. Now, if knight comes here, it's a fork, king and rook. A lot of players, particularly at the lower rating levels, and particularly when they're playing blitz, right, will just go, you're not forking me, right, I'm going to grab you. And then I noticed that if I recapture here, it comes with check. And the king can't do anything on the h-file, right? The king only has one square, which is here. So, comes in with a knight. Nah, doesn't mean anything to me, right? He's got a check here, but I can take with the rook. I already figured that out. So bishop e3, and now the key. This is the point. I'm guarding g1, right? He comes in here anyway. With 3 minutes on the clock, he actually gives up his knight, which isn't too smart, right? Now he takes a pawn, and I go, thank you very much. That will do me just fine, right? Knight in here with a fork. In fact, what has he even got? I think pawn takes is the only legal move here. And now that is checkmate, right? It wasn't the most complicated plan in the world. I saw he had one escape square. I just wanted to cover that escape square and let him do whatever he wanted to me in the meantime, because I knew I was coming in with a killer blow. So yeah, very proud of myself. I just managed to hide that and keep it, you know, keep it hidden. A little bit sleight of hand there, but very, very satisfying all the same. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.